Okay, it's Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Thanks for coming to the All About the Ketogenic Diet talk. And I'll start the presentation so we can get going here. Let's see. Okay, all about the ketogenic diet. So a little about me, I'm Coach Dave Shen. I am certified as an ACC over at the ICE International Coaching Federation. I do a lot of life coaching using evidence-based and also esoteric methods. I'm also a certified functional health coach with ADAPT, and I am level 2 with precision nutrition. Among those other things, I also am a total immersion swim coach. I've been doing that for a number of years. I also coach kettlebells, calisthenics, original strength, lots of rehab disciplines. And in the past, I was a triathlete, managed to get to 6 Ironmans, and yeah, now just dabble in kettlebells and a lot of this kind of coaching. So first, a little disclaimer. I'm not a licensed medical professional. We're going to talk a little about health today. So, but, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to diagnose, treat, or cure medical conditions. That does not replace the need for medical advice. If you have any health concerns or any kind of issues like that you would like to address, I would definitely go to your doctor before taking action on that. This is information today presented just for your benefit only, and please take that with as information, and go to your doctor and take the right next step after that. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We'll go through what is this diet, the ketogenic diet, where does it come from, the history, the benefits and some of the side effects, how does it work, right? How do you put it into action? And then a little bit about what they've discovered, how the ketogenic diet works for athletes. So with that, let's dive in. So what is the ketogenic diet? Typically, it's about from 70 to 90% of your calories daily from fat, with the remaining 10 to 30% calories from carbs and proteins. There are many combinations that exist. So if you read around to some of the popular literature about it, some systems have their favorite macro combinations. So one example could be 10% of calories is in carbs, 20% in protein, and 70% fat. When carbs drop to less than 50 grams a day, your ketone production goes up. So ketone bodies are produced by the liver and used as an energy source in your body when glucose sugars are not in your bloodstream. So basically, what you're trying to do with the ketogenic diet is create a condition where the body will burn fat for energy, and it's called ketosis. Basically, the fat is turned into ketones, and those can be metabolized for energy. And then hopefully magical things will happen according to the diet. So in recent years, ketogenic diet has been growing in popularity. This is just a graph of the number of studies done per year, and it's just been a lot of renewed interest into this diet. And when I say what's old is new again, this diet has actually been around since the 1920s. So doctors originally used the ketogenic diet as a treatment for childhood epilepsy. So they used to call it starvation, although we may more nicely call it fasting these days. But they basically researched fasting to generate ketosis. However, the ketogenic diet was found to create ketosis without the need for food restriction. So that was good. You didn't have to just stop eating in order to get into ketosis. You could actually still eat, but also achieve ketosis as well. So, you know, that was actually better than making children not eat at all to treat their epilepsy. They could still eat, so that was good. So now researchers today are exploring lots of different possible benefits for brain disorders like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, sleep disorders, autism, even brain cancer. So, and then also other conditions being researched are cholesterol, metabolic dysfunction, hypertension. So a lot of real excitement around this particular diet around the medical community. Also, in the 1980s and 90s, bodybuilders and physique athletes started exploring the ketogenic diet as a way to get ripped for competition. Now, the previous way to do that was to get rid of a lot of fat, and they could get there that way. But then they also realized, well, maybe they didn't have to get rid of that fat, and they could still get ripped for competition. Also, there's a lot of interest in using a ketogenic diet for weight loss. And also, athletes are exploring the ketogenic diet for other benefits, especially like endurance athletes, where they feel that for long-term performance, if you were to burn fat, which the body has a lot of stores of, then you could last longer and potentially do even better than depending on carbs for energy. So what are the possible benefits of this diet? So we've talked a little about weight loss. You might have your health conditions addressed, and I turn you back to the disclaimer that I put in the beginning. If you have any health conditions that you are considering addressing potentially with the keto diet, really go to your doctor and talk to them about that before doing this. Some people reported brain improvements, such as focus and clarity. Your endurance performance might be enhanced if you're an athlete, an endurance athlete. And also there could be some side benefits, like just simply if you are paying more attention to your diet, then you may be paying more attention to what you're putting in your mouth, which means then, therefore, you are probably avoiding some of the poor food choices you might have been making before and making better choices now. So what are some of the side effects? Okay, well, weight loss that you might be experiencing might actually be water loss, okay? Or the weight loss might not be sustainable or continue, or you might not actually get any at all. So there are some studies that show that some people just don't lose weight on it, even though they are properly in ketosis. Women and men react differently to removing carbs, and especially women may react negatively to removing carbs, and including the potential for affecting their menstrual cycle and disrupting that. Possible effects during the adjustment period. So as your body adjusts from burning carbs to burning fat, you might experience a lot of brain fog. You might have a lot of low energy periods. You might just not feel good during that time. Also, if you're trying to gain muscle, it may be very difficult because the protein requirements to be on the keto diet are pretty low relative to what you would be eating if you were trying to really put on muscle. Other things related to just trying to maintain this diet, right? It might be just really hard to maintain, and that could cause you a lot of stress or frustration trying to keep on that diet, and then you're trying not to get, and you're not seeing any effects, right? So that can be really frustrating and just raise your level of discomfort with what's going on. Sometimes if you get on the keto diet, you may actually remove a lot of fiber, okay? And that may cause constipation. You may remove a lot of beneficial foods in your attempt to raise your fat content, and that could increase the risk of certain diseases. And generally, nutrients may be deficient if you are removing some of these foods that you can't be eating in order to maintain a ketosis state. Now, one other thing that I do want to point out is that low carb may also trigger something called ketoacidosis. And I would really consult with your doctor before starting any diet. The literature says it's very rare, and this condition is more prevalent in type 1 diabetics, but the jury's still out whether a lot of people are at risk. It doesn't seem like it, but still, it is something to consider if you're deciding to try this diet out. So how do you put this into place? So to review, your macro target is approximately 70 to 90% calories and fat, 10 to 30% calories and carbs and protein. You can kind of pick whichever one you want to do. So in a nutshell, super, super low carbs, very, very high fat, and whatever's left over, you want to eat in protein. So here's a chart kind of comparing the different styles of eating and what could happen. And the bottom one there, you can see where the carbs are dropped down even lower than a low carb meal. Now you can kind of shift the fat percentage of the 5% over to the carb 10% if we're going to do 10% carbs. But generally, it's going to really affect your eating pattern a lot. And probably the biggest increase is just you got to eat a lot of fat in order to do this right. So what does that look like, that kind of macro combination? So small amount of protein. So we know what protein sources are: meat, poultry, fish, seafood, and eggs. A large amount of high-fat foods. So examples would be avocados, coconuts, lots of plant oils, nuts and nut butters, bacon. Good thing bacon's in there because we all love bacon. Egg yolks, butter, cheese, animal fats. Small amount of low-carb vegetables. So a lot of leafy greens are good for that. Things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, cucumber, celery, tomatoes, peppers, mushrooms, zucchini. And to be avoided are sweet, starchy, and high-carb foods. So that can be most dairy, except for maybe butter and cheese, fruit, grains, beans, starchy vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, slightly sweet vegetables like winter squash and beets, and most processed foods you should be eating because they just put sugar in there to make them more palatable. So to graphically illustrate what could be okay, these foods tend to be okay. Doesn't look bad, right? Pretty delicious makeup here. A lot of leafy vegetables in there, cheese in there. The numbers that are sitting next to the words are number of grams carbs per 100 grams of food item. So you can see where even though vegetables are good for you and you really should eat a lot of those, some of them actually do have a potentially high carb component, which could affect you being able to hit your targets, daily targets, macro targets. And these are things that you want to avoid. So any kind of fruits, root vegetables like potatoes, pastas, popular drinks, sodas, any kind of candy, processed foods generally, rice cooked. I mean, all these kind of things you really want to just stay away from because they're going to affect your ability to hit those macro targets and whether or not you can maintain ketosis. So how do you do this? Well, first, you will compute the number of calories approximately that you will need per day. This is done by a lot of popular calculators out there. One is linked in the back in the appendix. But you need to enter things like your age, your gender, weight, height, activity level, what your goals are, and then you can kind of get a rough number that you should target. Then you want to compute the target macro percentages of carbs, protein, and fat. So let's say we pick a 10% carbs, 70% protein, 10% carbs, 20% protein, and 70% fat. And then when you're done, make sure that the carbs that you computed, the percentage versus the calories that you need, are less than 50 grams per day. Because if you are over that, you introduce the possibility that you are not in ketosis, and it could just make the keto diet not get you any results that you were thinking you were going to get from it. Then plan your meals. Look up those macros in food databases, build your spreadsheet, check all your macro counts per day, make lists of commonly eaten foods, and make combinations out of them for easy meal planning. So what you want to do is basically get a sense for all those foods that you can eat and in what quantities, get a sense for what pattern that looks like. Okay, so that will help you maintain this diet. Then all you have to do is track for a while and hopefully only check intermittently once in a while. There are those who can go out and just track every single day. It is difficult to do that, but definitely doable. And you may want to do that for a period of time. It's very interesting to generate the data and see how that works. But for most people, you definitely want to track for a little while just to make sure that you are properly eating enough of the right foods and not eating any of the foods you want to avoid. And then reach ketosis and reach it and maintain it from there on. A tip is just minimizing diet variation. That will help a lot. So you may want to stop eating a huge variety of foods. Just sticking to the basics will help you maintain this. That is unfortunately going to mean likely that you will need to avoid eating out, because then you cannot determine everything that is going into the food that you eat. And when you can't do that, that can throw any diet out the window, especially one that really is critical to maintaining certain calorie percentages in order to maintain ketosis. Highly recommend that if you decide to try this, take it for a test drive for a few days, see if you can maintain it, see if you can reach ketosis, and see how does it feel? Does it feel like something you can keep going? And if you can't, consider doing something else. It is really important to measure your ketones and to make sure that you reach ketosis. So you'll want to obtain some kind of ketone meter for checking that. It is extremely easy to not be in ketosis when you're attempting this diet. It is extremely critical to be in ketosis to get the benefits. And for some people, it can be extremely difficult to obtain ketosis, depending on who you are, what your lifestyle is. I mean, all these kind of factors kind of add together to whether or not you will be successful in maintaining ketosis and getting the benefits of the keto diet. Likely the most accurate and the best meter is using a blood ketone meter. That's a picture of one on the right. They look like blood glucose meters. Oftentimes the blood glucose meter can be used for a ketone meter as well. You just change out the test strips. You basically use a finger prick tool. You generate a blood drop. You stick the sensor, the little strip onto it, and then stick it in the meter, and it tells you what your ketones are. You can also use a breath meter. That's the least invasive. Just know that it does not directly measure ketones in your body. And so the metabolic byproduct that it does measure is what we call a proxy for ketones. So it is possible that even though the breath meter may say theoretically you're in ketosis, it may not mean that you actually are. So just be aware of that if you decide to get a breath meter and use that. Urine strips are also used. They're the least expensive. But just know that the secretion of excess ketones through your urine can also be based on how your body uses ketones. So if you get into ketosis, you may actually find that the ketones that you measure actually start disappearing because your body is starting to use them for energy and they don't show up in your urine anymore. So this graph kind of shows kind of what the targets are in terms of how many ketones you want. Nutritional ketosis starts at about 0.5 millimoles per liter or something like that. I think that's the units there. So light nutritional ketosis is from 0.5 to 1.0. And the ideal range, if you're on the keto diet, is really to get up into the 1.0 to 3.0 level and maintain that. Now, that graph also shows that potentially, depending on your activity, you could actually get to ketosis in other ways too. Like for instance, if you exercise very hard, you may actually achieve a high ketosis measurement in your blood. And fasting will also get there too, as we've talked about in the historical section. When to test, what you want to do is pick the same time each day. Two options that are recommended. One is morning before meals. So you fasted overnight. Upon waking, just know that your glucose level may be high because your morning cortisol is engaged and it is trying to wake you up and try to get you ready for the day. However, if your ketone levels are still high even though the cortisol is releasing blood glucose into your bloodstream, then you are probably in a really good level of ketosis. However, you may want to wait 2 or 3 hours after waking and remember not to eat anything before you take that measurement. Also, before lunch or dinner is also another good time to take measurements. What you want to do is wait 2 hours after you've taken any food or drink besides water and then test. Okay, so eat your breakfast, wait until 2 hours, hopefully that's right before lunch, and then test, and likewise for dinner. So how long does it take for you to get to ketosis? It really depends on the person. It depends on your activity level, eating patterns, even your biology. Some people can enter ketosis overnight. Wow, kudos to them, right? And some people will require 2 to 4 days of carb restriction. So you have to maintain your ketogenic diet, the exact same pattern for up to 4 days before your ketone level will rise to the level of proper ketosis, okay, or target ketosis. And then once you enter and maintain that, then you'll need to let your body adapt to utilizing fat for energy. And that can take an additional 2 to 4 weeks after that. So that's the period of time when you may experience it might be tough to recover from high levels of activity. You may experience brain fog. There may be other things that can happen, or you might feel maybe you feel completely fine. Who knows? But anyway, it could take 2 to 4 weeks before you really engage ketosis in your normal daily activities. How long do you have to stay on keto to see the effects? Well, let's see. It takes about overnight to 4 days to just reach ketosis. Then to adapt to using fat stores for energy, you need about 2 to 4 weeks. And then when you get there, then you want to stay on keto for, depending on how long you want to achieve. Research actually shows it's safe to about 1 year. That's about as long as people have researched it in the papers that you can find out there. There doesn't seem to be research beyond that, but there's no evidence that is unsafe either to go beyond that. And there are definitely people who claim they've been on keto for years and they are perfectly fine and doing well. But for medical conditions, I would encourage you to work with your doctor to see how long you can expect to be on this keto diet and to achieve whatever results in that side of things that you want to. And weight loss, like with other methods of losing weight, basically just keep going until the weight loss levels off, and then try something else, because obviously that modality didn't work till it didn't work, and then we should switch to something else. We want to keep losing weight. So you get in there. So what are the common pitfalls? Well, most commonly, right, your food choices don't adhere to ketogenic macro targets. So you say you're on keto diet, you tell all your friends, whatever, but when you really look at what this person's eating or what you're eating, they're likely not eating, say, not enough fat or too much protein, right? That's the next one down there. They may be eating a lot of keto-friendly label processed foods, which could have, even though they seem to have a lot of fat or whatever's in there, there could be other things in there that could be derailing you. There could be a lot of hidden carbs and a lot of things that you're eating, like added sugar, or not realizing that carbs are in certain foods, like plants, for example. That could be, everything needs to be added in there and managed to make sure that you stay in ketosis. Another one is just, well, I went on the diet and I just thought I'd eat this way and be okay. But if you don't check with a meter, you may not have ever achieved ketosis from the very beginning. And so that could be a problem there, just not knowing whether you really are in ketosis or not. Another one is just not maintaining ketosis long enough, and also not taking the time to adapt to using fat for energy. So let's say you only go for 3 weeks and you go, oh, I'm done with it, right? It's like, well, that may not be long enough to achieve whatever results you thought you might have wanted to achieve with the keto diet. Okay, and if you're an athlete, you really got to take the time to adapt to using fat for energy, or else you may just give up because it's too hard to train, to race, or to whatever, and just quit too soon to reap the benefits. Also, if you make a food choice error, you may drop out of ketosis in the middle of your keto diet, and well, you know what? It looks like that resets the clock on getting back in ketosis, and you may have to redo everything again, right? The 2 to 4 days to get into ketosis, and then another 2 to 4 weeks to readapt again. So just keep that in mind, that it may just completely reset you out of this, the benefits of this diet, and you have to start over again. All right, so a little bit about athletes, since we are Performance Gains here, and we are really servicing the athlete community and those who love to work out. There are numerous research papers in recent years to study the effects of the keto diet on athletes. And in a folder that I'll provide for you later, I put some of those papers in there so you can read them. So, but the summary is really the jury's still out. It doesn't clearly say that the keto diet is great for everything and everyone. But here are some things that that it seems like they've discovered, right? It's really critical to give the body time to fat adapt. So you have to really be on this diet for quite a long time and have faith that if you stay on this thing, this diet, you will reap the benefits later on. Another one is oftentimes when they're in the research studies, weight loss was an outcome, So, but that may actually be the reason for increased performance efficiency, because if you lose weight, you're carrying less weight when you're running or moving around. So that actually could be a reason why you actually got faster or use less energy or all that kind of thing. There is some question about whether if you're an elite or recreational. There seems to be some evidence for benefits to recreational endurance athletes, but right now it's still unclear for elites. Okay, so more research is needed there. If you're looking to build muscle, it may be really hard because the protein requirement is pretty low and potentially too low for the current guidelines for what you want to eat protein-wise if you want to bulk up, if you want to build up more muscle. I put this quote from this particular paper from back in 2015, which was just looking at not necessarily ketogenic diets, but just high-fat diets. And I think it really kind of speaks to, right, an individualized approach that is periodized to a training cycle. You have to check out each workout, and you want to make sure that in each session, if they want to perform well, you want to really study how this particular person, this athlete, is going to respond to the exercise and how to amplify that. So it's really a customized approach, and from the coach's perspective, they really have to know the athlete and what they're trying to do. And balance that with the needs of whether the keto diet is actually going to get them there or not. So bottom line is some athletes seem to do okay on a low carb regimen, but hey, you might not be one of them. So if you want, definitely spend the time to see if you are one of those, but also realize that you may come out as an experiment finding out that you may do better with more carbs than less. Okay, so in summary, the keto diet is probably one of the most difficult diets to implement and maintain. I talk about it with many of my clients all the time. They bring up keto diet, and I, run through everything. I go, and I don't want to say I try to talk them out of it, but I try to make them. I try to lay out what I just talked to you today, and it is really hard to maintain this. And for most people, it's simply not maintainable. Okay, so that's something to consider. That's not to say that you shouldn't try it or anything like that. That's why I say earlier on that you should try it on for size, right? Take it for a test drive, see how it does for you and your lifestyle and what you want to achieve, and see if you can do it. Okay. Always remember that health-related outcomes, especially medical ones, should be managed with your doctor. Okay. Don't come out of this presentation, please, thinking that you're going to cure some kind of disease with what you learned here today or what you read. Please contact your doctor and work with them to, if you want to implement this keto diet for something that you're experiencing now. Just know that weight loss results are mixed. For some, it seems to work really great, and for others, it doesn't seem to work at all. And some people seem to initially lose weight and then level off. And like I said before, in the late weight loss game, oftentimes we see that things will work for a while, and then they start leveling off, people start plateauing, and then we need to adjust after that. And for some, people just keep losing all the way down to whatever target they will have. So who knows? We just got to try and see if this is the proper one for you. Watch out for all the possible side effects. Right now, it is easy to go into a supermarket and just start buying all these packaged foods that say keto friendly, keto friendly, keto friendly. But if you don't watch out for the overall macros as you add them up during the day, it can be a big problem. Okay, so that's one of those among the other ones that we talked about. Bear in mind, based on my first statement here, that was most difficult to implement and maintain. It may require you to maintain this eating pattern for months, okay, in order to get desired results. So yes, it's difficult to start this and figure it out, but then holy moly, got to keep going, all the things that you may need to give up in order to maintain this diet. Yes, for great potential benefits for it, but just take stock of how your life is going to change if you decide to go down the road of this diet. And like I said, take it for a test drive, see if you like it, see if you can maintain it, see if it fits into your lifestyle, see if it fits into your activity level, all these kind of things. There are some great things that you can get out of it. Then go from there. So more resources, you can download them at this link here. Go to that URL, that short link, and it'll pop up my Dropbox folder with this particular presentation in it and a bunch of papers in there that relate to athletes and the keto diet. There's also a document there that has links to good articles on the web on the ketogenic diet, so you can kind of look at what are some of the elements or more detail level things about them. And also in this presentation later, there's an appendix with links to all the sources that I've created, that they used to create this presentation. So I encourage you to follow those links and to look at that information when you have time. So with that, any comments and questions?
Yes, I had some questions. I put them in the chat.
Oh, I did not see.
But I could also just ask. I could also just ask if you want.
Let me stop this. So, yeah, I cannot see the chat for some reason. So yeah, please ask away.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're talking about ketosis and having a pretty high percentage of fat in the diet. I was wondering if there's any discussion around whether that fat should be saturated fat or unsaturated fat. Is that something that matters when someone's trying to get into ketosis?
Speaking specifically and only about the ketogenic diet, there's no notion of what kind of fat you need to eat. And getting into what fat is healthy and not, probably out of the scope of this presentation. And there's a lot of controversy over that too. And maybe that's something for a future talk. We can kind of pull together some of the current thinking and the controversies around which fat is good, which fat is bad, and the implications. But there is no directions on what kind of fat. You could be taking cupfuls of olive oil or corn oil or whatever, and it would get you into ketosis. Whether that's healthy for you is a completely different question, but but it is good enough for the keto diet.
Okay, good to know. Cool, that's helpful. Next question: what does too much protein do to my ketosis reading or ketosis ability? Yeah.
That I should probably look up exactly what happens, because there are what they call modified ketogenic diets. In fact, I went on one where they didn't say you had to manage the protein level. You just did protein and fat, and you could eat as much of either as you wanted, but dropping your carbs to almost zero, right? As much as far down as possible. But I mean, there's some level of possibility that if you don't take enough fat, then the body isn't encouraged to use fat for energy. I would shy away from saying that, oh, the body's going to start metabolizing protein, right? Even though we know that it's got a calorie content and we can calorie it, but it is very unlikely that someone's going to start metabolizing protein in a normal situation. So the answer to your question, I think, is it is unknown, but a good question. And I'd love to take a closer look at that.
Cool. Okay. And this next one, it's not really it's a question, but it's kind of just more of a clarification because as we're going through, I was realizing something that I don't know that I realized it before. It's not just about getting into ketosis, right? That takes a certain amount of time, but it's about getting there, then fat adapting, and then maintaining it longer in order to then realize the benefits. It seems pretty involved.
Yes. I'll relate this experience. So when I was doing this modified ketogenic diet, it was right before I was going to go for my RKC. So I was working with my doctor and we decided to do it. I was like, I got the RKC coming up. She wants me to cut all carbs. Okay, I'll give it a try. So it was probably about 6 weeks before I start doing this, and literally I cratered. I could not snatch worth anything. And it was really frustrating. I was like, what's going on here? And I was like, okay, I'm stopping this thing. So 4 weeks in after starting, I stopped. I started jamming carbs, and bang, like within a day, my energy came roaring back, and made it. And I did the 5-minute snatch test as a rehearsal, and I did it twice beforehand. So clearly, like, I did not wait long enough to fat adapt. Okay. So, but who knows what would happen if I had started earlier, right, before the RKC, and could I have gotten there? I don't know. I'm not sure. Right? I haven't taken it out that long enough. I'm probably in that instance. I could definitely think that there's a lot of athletes out there, right, that are in training or trying to prepare for an event, and right, they're trying this fat thing, high fat thing, and then in the middle of their training cycle, they're like, oh my God, I can't make my workouts, whatever reps or intervals I need to make in a certain time. Am I going to make it? Right. And then the doubt comes in, and then boom, you get off it. So yeah, it's tough. Right. And there are some athletes, endurance athletes like cyclists, who are really successful. They just maintain it for enough weeks to fat adapt, and they seem to be doing okay. And in fact, the performance hasn't dropped. Okay, so like I said, it might work for you, and it might completely not work for you, and you have to maintain it long enough to find out. Yeah, as a biohacker, I would say it's always fun to try these things and to see if you do better or not, and allocate the time in your season or your year to be able to do that. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, Chris, or not, but
No, it does. It does. I think it's, I think oftentimes when we're trying to like do some kind of health and fitness intervention, I think it's often like, okay, who's going to start this today? Or, typically I'll start tomorrow, or I'll start next Monday. But it sounds like with this specifically, there needs to be more thought around the timing of it if there's some kind of performance goal involved, or anything involved where like your energy and or performance is going to be tested and measured. You kind of have to be like, well, I got this thing coming up in 6 weeks, so I'm going to stay normal for the next 6 weeks, and then after that, then I can make these adjustments, have my adaptation period, and then maintain it from there.
that's correct.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
If I could just add one last thing.
Yeah.
I just still want to point out the jury's still out on whether or not you will do better, right, on keto diet than some other regimen, right, some other eating pattern. And so, especially for elite athletes, if you really want to do better, it's going to be an experiment for you, right? There are no certainties here. And remember, this experiment's going to last 3 to 4, 6 months, right? It's like definitely not more than a month, right? It's going to be wild to see if this will work for you. So just bear that in mind if you decide to go down this road.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this, David. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions, Chris, or is that it?
None from me.
Okay, with that then, yeah, go to the downloads of this short URL, take a look at this presentation. If you have any comments or questions, go to the Performance Gains Collective on Mighty Networks and pop them into the food category. And if you need help with the keto diet or any other diet, Performance Gains also has a nutrition coaching program, so I encourage you to check that out. I'm part of that. And with that, stay healthy, eat right, and I'll see you next time.